Hello and welcome to SaltWire today for Wednesday, January 4th. I'm your host, Kate Walker. A special weather statement has been in effect today as parts of the province are expected to be hit with a mixed bag of weather tonight through tomorrow night. A wintry mix of rain, snow, and ice are on tap, which could make for dangerous driving conditions for some. Our weather specialist Alistair Alders has more on how hard it's expected to hit, depending on where you are in Nova Scotia.
Thanks, Kate. Well, in true Nova Scotia fashion, really, it was raining earlier, mild today, and now we're talking about a wintry mix that will be developing tomorrow and continuing into early Friday. Now, I guess the piece of good news with this next system is it's a fairly weak trough, so it's not going to have a significant impact on Nova Scotia and including us here in Halifax. But certainly the winter components that we're dealing with, snow, ice pellets, freezing rain, and rain, could certainly lead to some poor travel conditions across the province. And I think it's best to visualize all this with our weather timeline. And we'll start later tonight where we begin with cloudy skies. But we have a pulse of energy that will move in ahead of this trough, and that will bring precipitation onto the south shore of Nova Scotia, parts of the Annapolis Valley, and maybe as far east as Halifax by Thursday morning. This will be a mix of snow and ice pellets, except freezing rain over interior areas of the south shore and rain directly along the Atlantic coast of the south shore. It becomes patchier. Some areas get a break as we go into the afternoon, but as the center of low approaches and then passes off our coastline, the precipitation becomes more widespread across Nova Scotia, and it will be a mix of snow and ice pellets, freezing rain, and rain. Now, it looks like the best shot at the steadier snow and ice pellets will be across the north shore of Nova Scotia into Cape Breton, where we could see about 5 to 10 centimeters of snow and ice pellets. The risk of ice pellets and freezing rain will extend from the Annapolis Valley through interior areas of Hants County and Halifax and towards the northeast. Again, I do not think this will be significant, but certainly we could see poor driving conditions, so do take care in those areas. Less than 5 centimeters of snow expected, but again, we could see that freezing rain potential. And then directly along the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia from the south shore into the Halifax area and along the eastern shore, mainly rain. Now, we could see a bit of ice pellets or freezing rain before that transition to just rain, but it will be less than 5 centimeters, if any, accumulation, and about 5 to 15 millimeters of rain. The good news with this system, too, it's not a major wind event. Winds will be out of the northeast, in general gusting 30 up to 50 kilometers per hour, with the strongest wind gusts expected directly along the Atlantic coast. Back to you, Kate.
And Alistair will be back in the weather section to give us our regular update on what to expect in HRM tonight heading into tomorrow. And speaking of weather, for this time of year, we've been experiencing higher than normal seasonal temperatures across the region. Green grass and insects are still being spotted, and the winter so far has been nothing short of mild. But for people like farmers and gardeners, the warm temperatures can have a negative effect on plants and crops. But we're still not into the dead of winter, and that could definitely change.
Well, ideally, a layer of snow is great at insulating plants, particularly things like perennials and bulbs, as well as food crops like garlic and perennial vegetables. But it acts like an insulating blanket, and it reduces the effects of temperature extremes, wind damage, and also keeps plants moist over the winter months. We don't have that right now. So a lot of people are concerned, how is this going to affect my plants? The big issue would be temperature swings. If we have a mild December and January, but then all of a sudden temperatures plunge, that can certainly damage plants. Things that I would be most worried about would be spring flowering shrubs and trees like magnolias and forsythias, because they set their flower buds in the previous year. So those buds are already out there. I've noticed in my forsythia, some of the flower buds are starting to swell. I noticed last weekend also magnolia buds are starting to swell. So if we get a temperature plunge, that might go from 5 or 6 Celsius to minus 15 in a short period of time, that could damage and impact the coming flowering season, where we have fewer flowers or, unfortunately, maybe no flowers at all.
The provincial government is taking more steps to try and increase the number of workers in the province's struggling healthcare system. It was announced today that more continuing care assistants will soon be moving to Nova Scotia from Kenya.
I would hope that the government, I don't see it anywhere in their release, but I do hope that they are also supporting workplaces with the arrival of new cultures. Our workers are just They're just regular folk going to work, earning their pay, going home, trying to find affordable housing. So I would hope that this change, while the newcomers should be supported, also the workplace needs to be supported with the new cultures, the new experiences, the different ways people coming from different countries may have of working, the different views they may have on work, and the service that we provide to seniors.
65 CCAs have received conditional job offers. This came after a recent recruiting trip to Kenya. They're expected to arrive mid-2023 and will work in the continuing care sector in communities across the province. Nova Scotia has already supported 42 applicants through the pilot project, including more than 20 continuing care assistants now working in the continuing care system. Questions and concerns are being raised about the future of the Southwest Nova Correctional Facility in Yarmouth. Many of what were supposed to be temporary COVID-19 measures back in March 2020 still remain. SaltWire's Tina Camo has more on the uncertainty.
There are ongoing questions and local concern about the future of the Southwest Nova Correctional Facility in Yarmouth. Operations at the jail were scaled back by the province in March 2020 due to the COVID pandemic. Since then, the jail, which opened in 2004 and has a bed capacity for 38 inmates, has only ever housed 2 to 4 people at any given time. The majority of individuals in custody on remand or serving sentences are sent to the Central Nova Correctional Facility in Burnside. This has been taxing on resources as in-person court appearances require round trips of more than 600 kilometers, as opposed to just traveling to and from the jail located a few minutes away from the courthouse in Yarmouth. Lawyers say the situation impacts their ability to communicate with their clients. It impacts both individuals in custody and their families, as community contacts and supports are lost due to the distance. Then there is also the impacts on the staff of the facility. In court scheduling logistics, if people in custody are required in court over multiple days. The province says the Yarmouth facility continues to operate at reduced capacity because it doesn't have the medical staff needed for it to operate at full capacity. The Justice Department also says, however, that the jail is an important part of its corrections infrastructure. Still, local rumors persist and concerns continue that the jail will close, even though the province says this is not their intention. This is Tina Camo, reporting for SaltWire Network in Yarmouth.
Canada will face off against Team USA tonight in the World Juniors at the Scotiabank Centre. It's been a long-standing rivalry between the two. Connor Bedard has been the talk of the town as he helped Team Canada advance from the quarterfinal against Slovakia with his overtime goal. And buying tickets has become another game in itself. Some ticket holders are taking advantage as the Premier Games have been sold out for some time now. Some people are asking as much as $25,000 on StubHub for a single ticket to the gold medal game, while the lowest resale price to tonight's semifinal between USA and Canada was $697. For the highest asking price, the semi was $6,397 for a lower bowl seat in a corner section. Many are reporting to social media to beware of scams. Puck drop tonight for Canada-US is 7:30. It's time now for a glimpse of today's Thinking Out Loud with Sheldon McLeod. Today, Sheldon is speaking with Nova Scotia Liberal leader Zach Churchill.
With inflation, and that seems to be the biggest reason. Is that why the party introduced the legislation it did, and that's why you're making this call today?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, we were part of certainly had the biggest income assistance increase in Nova Scotian history under the previous government. So that's one thing that we were happy about. But that was before we're facing this kind of inflation monster that's driving up the cost of living on everything. You know, we've seen food costs go up by over 11% in the last year. Power rates are going up. Price at the pump is going up. And this is really putting the squeeze on a lot of people. It's creating a very precarious situation, not just with low-income Nova Scotians, but members of what we would historically call the middle class, working families, working individuals who are actually bringing in wages into their household. Everybody is being impacted. Fixed income seniors who are living off their pensions or previous investments. So inflation is not something that's only affecting one group of people. It's having a broad-based effect on individuals and on our economy overall. And we really need, I think, our government to start thinking a bit differently about how we approach supporting people and making sure that as the cost of living goes up, government supports that are already available can actually be accessed by these people.
And for Sheldon's full conversation, head to the opinion section of saltwire.com. Time now for the Atlantic Sports Wire, presented by Scott Squires.
The East Coast Ice Jam is just a week away. It begins on January the 11th, and the president of the Nova Scotia U18 Major Hockey League, Paul Graham, is here. Paul, what's the latest you can tell us about the exciting SaltWire Ice Jam?
Well, we're thrilled to be getting this close, but we're also nervous too, Scott. It's the first time in 3 years we're putting it on with a new executive and a new committee chair. But we had pretty much our final meeting last night, and everything is pretty much tied up in a bow. There's a few last minute things, but we're excited to have the largest Ice Jam tournament, East Coast Ice Jam tournament in its history. We have over 54 teams, 1,200 players. We're using two venues now. We're out in East Hants with the U16. We have a new U16 division. We're very excited about it, but we're also a little nervous too.
Anybody that wants to get more information about the Ice Jam, where the games are, when they are, how can they find out?
Icejam.ca has everything on it now. We have an active Twitter feed, but I would direct them to our Ice Jam website. Everything, including the scheduling, is on there. You'll see sponsors, timing, and all of that. And Scott, I want to take the opportunity again to thank SaltWire as our premier prime sponsor for the event too.
We're excited to be there, Paul. Thanks for this. We'll look forward to seeing you at the SaltWire East Coast Ice Jam next week.
And you too. Thank you.
Thanks again to Paul Graham, president of the Nova Scotia U18 Hockey League. The East Coast Ice Jam, presented by SaltWire, is January 11th to the 15th. In Halifax, I'm Scott Squires for the Atlantic Sports Wire.
Thank you, Scott. On to weather now. To see what's coming up in the forecast, we're going to check back in now with our weather specialist, Alistair Alders.
Hi again, Kate. Well, this weather system I am tracking, not likely to have a significant impact here in Halifax, but certainly when we're dealing with this wintry mix of precipitation, could lead to some poor driving conditions. This evening we will have mainly cloudy skies and the temperature near 2 degrees, and we wake up near -3 on our Thursday morning. It will be cloudy, and some of the outer bands of this system could approach in the morning in the form of some light snow or ice pellets. It does become patchier as we go into the afternoon, but steadier precipitation develops in the late afternoon and evening hours. This will be in the form of a mix of snow and ice pellets, mixing with freezing rain and likely changing to rain directly along the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia. The temperature on Thursday afternoon will be near -2 inland, but closer to the freezing mark along the coast. I mentioned this wintry mix of precipitation continues Thursday night into Friday. Less than 5 centimeters of snow or ice pellets expected inland, about 5 to 15 millimeters of rain forecast along the Atlantic coast of Nova Scotia. There's still a bit of uncertainty with this system, though. I am keeping a very close eye on it, and we'll have another update here tomorrow. Kate.
Thank you, Alistair. That's all for now. For more extended video and full online articles, stay tuned to saltwire.com. And you can find us on Instagram, Twitter, and YouTube. I'm your host, Kate Walker. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you back here tomorrow.